Hello. Now, I just posted my New Orleans commentary, and once again I was requested to post something about the Amagi in ranked. So I figured, what the hell? Why the hell not? I've been slacking a bit with my YouTube lately, because of like the event and all this stuff. So I figured I'd play a quick game in ranked. Now, first of all, I'm telling the team to focus fire their DDs, because sadly we only have a Fubuki while they have a Benson. They also have double Kutuzov, whereas we have New Orleans Kutuzov. So they're going to have a pretty huge smoke advantage. So obviously if the enemy team comes and contests B with us, or B against us, they're probably going to beat us pretty hard because they have a huge smoke advantage. So that's going to be very, very hard to overcome because they have three sources of smoke and they have a better smoke because Fubuki, of course, is Japanese smokes, which last a shorter time, and the Kutuzov, of course, only has Russian smokes, which also last a shorter time. So it's going to be a very rough battle. But I picked this game simply because I want to highlight, when I went over like the tiers on battleships, I mostly talked about the bad aspects of the Amagi, and I of course I still labeled it as a viable battleship. Of course I said it was situational, but it's still viable. And the reason I label it as viable is because of course the ship does have strengths. First of all, it has very, very good dispersion at long ranges. And it's the only T8 battleship that can bring 10 guns to bear. Yes, they're split up into 5 turrets, but that's still 10 heavy shells that you can do absolutely insane damage with. There's also the fact that the turret belt on this ship is absolutely insane. I think it's 45%. So literally, if you see a torp volley coming your way, it's better to take 3 torps on your broadside on the belt than to take 2 torps on the front of your nose, because that 45% reduction is huge. Now luckily the enemy team made a huge tactical mistake here. They went to A instead of coming to contest B against us. With their smoke advantage they would have had a pretty good chance of easily taking this game if they had come to B, but instead they went to A. And our New Orleans, that would have struggled getting close and using his radar right in the open, he would have to be smoked and stuff, and it would have just been very awkward. Well, he can now just park behind some island and easily radar them on the other side of the island. So they made a tactical mistake here, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Of course, if I was on the team, I'd be complaining, but, well, if the enemy team is doing it, I'm perfectly okay with that. Now, when it comes to playing the ship, when I said it's situational, I perfectly mean that when it comes to brawling, the ship is not very good. But it's viable because this meaty broadside that the ship has is definitively no joke. If you make mistakes like showing broadside to this ship, it doesn't matter what range it is. If you make mistakes showing broadside against someone who knows how to aim with this ship, you're gonna have a very, very bad time. Let's see if I can get, well, here we have a Kutuzov. He is at 18 kilometers, 17.8. He sails in a straight line. He's so far away, he thinks he's pretty safe. He just sees a turret shooting at him. He thinks, well, they are so far away, I should be safe. But then comes Big Daddy Amagi and shows him just exactly what happens when you show broadside to him. Bam! 33k volley, instantly deleted. But of course, now I'm starting to get fairly close to them, and now you have to be very careful about not showing broadside because, as I said, this ship is situational. Luckily, G's Ultra here, the enemy Amagi, is giving us a good example of what happens when you show broadside in the Amagi. He's giving a flat, nice broadside. Oh, and there we go. 40,000 damage, well, 39,000 damage volley on the enemy Amagi. So let's give a little applause to G's Ultra there for showing us such a prime example of what happens if you go around showing full broadside in the ship. And that's of course why this ship is labeled situational. That kind of stuff doesn't happen with the Bismarck or the Tirpitz because of their turtleback, but both the North Carolina and the Amagi are susceptible to those kind of volleys. He's still spotted, of course, so I try to finish him. Now you notice I repair. The only reason I repair here is because of the smoke. I see myself gliding into the smoke. I would never actually repair in a situation where I'm being shot at otherwise. The only reason I do it is because of the location of the smoke. Sadly, I didn't pay proper attention to when it was popped, so I'm gonna be spotted right away with no repair this time. So this is of course extremely awkward. Now, you might notice that yes, I'm bringing all my guns to bear, but I'm still not showing that full broadside. In fact, the angle that this guy is showing, it looks like it's too much broadside, but it actually isn't. It's quite hard to citadel a slightly angled Amagi. You really have to give a nice chunk of that broadside to be able to get citadeled. But that of course is why, when it comes to brawling, the ship has a huge weakness. Well, of course, just like the North Carolina. The North Carolina has the advantage of the massive anti-air and the superior turret placement, but the Amagi doesn't have those goodies. It's forced to give a lot of broadside every time it takes those shells. Now, of course, the Bismarck secondaries are tearing me apart here, but when you create some distance between yourself and both the Tirpitz and the Bismarck, suddenly the tables turn. When you're in secondary range, Bismarck is the big daddy. As soon as you get out of secondary range, well, if he goes around showing you broadside, let's get a nice example here. 21k and only hit 6 shells and one was an overpen. So you can easily do 20 to 30k damage volleys if you hover around 11 to, let's say, 14 kilometers. Of course, when I say you want to be keeping your range, I don't mean you should be sniping from the back line. Oh, and here's an example. Here I would never actually turn left. I'm turning left because I want to take a shot at this guy, but I know I'll be exposing a lot of broadside. Here, if we didn't have the lead, if I hadn't done 100k damage and we had a huge lead, I would never take this risk because I know I'm going to get heavy damage here. I would just have turned to the left and turned into them to avoid taking the damage. So this was something, I just want to point out that this was something I only did because of the huge lead we have already created, thanks to those 2 picks I managed to get. Otherwise, would never take that risk. And of course, once again, if you happen to find yourself within the secondary range of the Bismarck, disengage, disengage. If you're within 10.6 kilometers of the Bismarck, he beats you. As soon as you get away from that range and his secondaries stop firing and it becomes a straight up gun battle, well, he does 5k to me, I do 15k to him. And once again, he bounced one and I got a bunch of Urpens as well, so it wasn't even a good volley. So the one thing that the Amagi is absolutely massive at is pure damage. But you have to know how to use it, and that's why it's situational. On maps that force you to brawl, it can be very tricky to play because you really want to stay away from that brawling range, because that's where the enemy will get the advantages. But I think the golden distance that you want to be staying at is pretty much 11 to maybe 14 kilometers. Of course, you can push closer if you can stay angled or if you're smoked and so forth, but when it comes to straight up fighting another battleship, no. Okay, I think these guys are underestimating the power of my heal here, because I think they thought I would die, so that's why they're pushing in. But of course my heal kept me alive there, and they completely underestimated that. And of course fire damage is something that I don't care too much about, because fire damage is light damage, aka all dot damage is light damage, and your heal heals 100% of that. So you can heal massive amounts of light damage. So being set on fire is not a big deal because you can just heal it all back. Of course, that is if you don't die during it. So when it comes to playing the Amagi in ranked, if you can sit in smokes at a fairly good distance, that's good, but you never really want to be that battleship that pushes in. There are ships that are very good at that, the Bismarck with Hydra, the Tirpitz is fairly good because of torpedoes and turtleback. Even the NC can push fairly well, just as long as he gets to keep the enemies in front of him. You don't want to give any sort of broadside in the NC. The Amagi is quite well armored, to the point that he can give a fair amount of broadside without being citadeled. But the NC, if you give any sort of broadside, it's very easy to citadel the ship. In the Amagi, I absolutely slaughter any NC who gives any sort of broadside. It's very easy to citadel them with these big guns. So it's a strong ship, but of course situational. Very situational, and it requires a bit of a different playstyle. Now you saw my secondaries also open up there. The secondaries aren't really that good on the ship. Mostly the issue is that the secondaries, such a huge chunk of them shoot AP. And AP secondaries are pretty much garbage because, well, they're too small caliber to actually get any sort of penetration damage, and against DDs they do very little, against BBs they do very little, angled cruisers bounce them. Just overall, you just want HE secondaries like the Bismarck. But you see at range, you saw how much broadside I gave. The one shell he actually landed bounced. Like at range, the Bismarck and Tirpitz doesn't have shit on you. It's a straight up, like, just as they demolish you at close range, you demolish them at long range. That's how much the battle skews back and forth. Oh, that was a complete whiff. Holy crap, that wasn't very good. But yeah, but you see my heal is coming up, and you see all that gray area I can heal back up. That's all light damage I've taken, which is of course fire damage. So that's kind of the thing with all this secondary and fire damage that you get from them. If you survive it, you can heal up a lot of it. Will I be able to get this kill? No chances of Kraken anymore. I got the early kills, which kind of gave us the game. Well, there we go. game ended. That was what like a 10-minute game, something like that. Oh, and this was at 8 stars, so this is pretty much, well, I guess around where the average player might be, or well, starting to close in on this rank. And well, you see the XP I got, 153k damage and 6 rewards. That always makes me happy when I see that I've tanked 92,000 damage. I've tanked. So yeah, I've been eating a lot of damage this game. Damage could have been aimed at other people, but I don't mind eating it as a battleship since that's kind of my role to begin with. So overall, since it was requested, well, pretty much just now, here was a short Amagi ranked commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.